We're here today with the absolutely incredible Lucy Cropper. I'm so excited to share this interview with you. Why am I here with Lucy Cropper? Because I would like to give people the opportunity to share their experiences in the pole industry. We're doing the pole origins, and who better to learn from than this gorgeous lady herself. So I'm not going to ramble on too much. I'm going to pass you over to Lucy, and please would you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from?
So this is actually perfect. I'll tell you this really super quick story. I was at Inspire Studios in Cirencester this weekend, and we went out for some drinks afterwards. And one of the girls was talking to us, and she went, "Wait," she's leaning on the table. She went, "Wait, are you like the Lucy Cropper?" Like, oh my God. I was like, nobody has literally in my whole life, nobody has ever referred to me like that. But can we do that forever, please? Because I felt so important. So
Miss Lucy Cropper.
Right, I am Lucy Cropper, otherwise known as the Lucy Cropper forever. I run Lucy Pole, which is a studio near Witney in Oxfordshire, and was at one time and may one day be again, also a competition that we hosted. Yeah, I know. Maybe.
Fingers crossed.
Maybe,
Fingers crossed.
We'll see.
It is a lot of work running a competition, as we know, running any kind of event. So everyone should be massively grateful for all the hard work you've put in so far with that.
Thank you.
Grateful in advance for anything you do in the future.
I know, and I'd love to, I would, as much as I would love to sit here and take credit for that, I actually can't, because to be quite frank with you, the competition was completely run by somebody else called Lisa, one of my students, and I pretty much just ticked stuff and turned up on the day. She single-handedly was the only reason that event happened, continued for as long as it did, and not in a negative way, but she's the reason it stopped, because she got a fantastic new job that, you know, was her life calling, and just couldn't manage the competition as well. And that was when I realized quite how much she'd been doing for the last like 7-8 years. And I'll be completely honest with you, I was actually a little bit embarrassed at the time, and I had to go to her and be like, "I'm so sorry, because I legit never realized in all of these years how much you've been shouldering just for this event to happen." So it was quite humbling, but also really sad, because she was definitely the wheels. So I either need to persuade Lisa to quit her very passion-led job, or find somebody who is also has some time and capacity to basically do everything so that I can show up on the day and look cute, because that's how I like to run events.
I feel you. I absolutely feel you with that. Well, props to you for being a delegation queen, and also massive props and thanks to Lisa for doing everything that she's done. Yeah. Big props. So I want to know, Lucy, what inspired you to start pole?
Okay, so no shade at all, please, people listening. From what I can remember, and you know, let's not forget, I'm knocking on a little bit now, and this was a while ago. I think I saw somebody pole dancing on like CSI, one of the episodes of CSI. Oh. And I was like, oh my God, like I would so love to do that. And I think if I'm completely honest, I think actually it was the stripping side that really was like, oh my God, I would love to do that. But obviously in TV and movies, it's always portrayed as pole dancing as opposed to stripping. So I saw it on TV, and I was in a really abusive relationship at the time. So there was absolutely no way that taking up pole classes was going to be a thing for me. Like, it just wasn't. But one of the first things I did after I left him, after the first 6 months of just trying to get my life back into something that looked like order, the first thing I did was like, right, where can I find pole dancing classes? Enter.
And I bet like 2 things came up on the screen in the whole of the country.
In actual fact, I don't think I found anything. I think it was a Facebook call out, if I remember rightly, that put me in the right direction. But yeah, let's just say it was certainly not like it is today.
So your first encounter was some CSI pole dancing, and then you went searching for a class.
Yeah.
So eventually you got the Facebook call out and you found something. What was it that you found?
I found the quite epic and wonderful Dance Inspires in Oxford, which at the time wasn't being run by Nick Galmi. She was like head instructor, honcho. And again, she and her partner Adrian were doing like the bulk of the work, but they didn't actually own the company at that point. Honestly, I was just about to say it feels like decades ago now, and it actually is.
It is.
It feels like such a long time ago, but also yesterday, if that makes any sense at all. Like, it feels like it was forever ago, but it also feels like I can remember that memory, the smells, the sounds, what it like in so much detail. So it must, because I have a terrible memory, I have to assume that it was a very seminal moment for me, because I don't remember anything.
Well, it must have been super important. Obviously, the first time we walk into a pole studio is super important.
Okay, let's rewind that, because it wasn't a pole studio, because as you and I know, in those days there were no pole studios. So we were actually upstairs in a bar in Oxford that wasn't, set up for pole dancing at all. And I can remember we had one pole. I think there was 6 or 8 of us in the room and one instructor. No mats or anything. It was just a pole, 50 mil pole, whacked up in the middle of this, almost like a back office room in this pub. And the instructor would show us a move, and one at a time in a line, we would go to the pole, do the move both directions, get some feedback, get off, go to the back of the line, and the next person would go. That's legit what pole classes looked like in those days.
How long were those classes?
I'm going to guess an hour, because I probably wouldn't have travelled to Oxford from where I live for less than an hour. But again,
so if you think about there being 6 people in that pole class and you're doing a warm-up and a cool down, that's going to be obviously way less than 10 minutes each on the pole in an hour. That is definitely how it was, because my first class that I taught was like that, and I think I did 2 or 3 classes like that, and I was like, I can't do this, I need to find something better. So yeah, absolutely, I can feel you with that one.
It's insane to think now, like when I think about what my expectations are of a really good studio, what I would look for compared to what we actually had then is hilarious. Like, it's now I get like upset if I have to walk somewhere to get to a toilet. Like, we weren't even in a dance studio of any capacity, and that wasn't just Dance Inspires, that was everywhere that did pole everywhere for a good few years. Like, it was a good while before anybody had actual dancing space. It wasn't a thing back then.
Absolutely true. And do you remember when that was? Do you know how long ago that was?
It was that was August 2008, as far as I can remember. But yeah, around that time.
And your instructor, the person who was teaching you, did they talk to you about the people that came before them, or the people that inspired them, or people that were kind of like famous or known within the industry at the time?
I'm going to say that I don't remember having that explicit conversation, but at the same time, the internet was a very different place in those days, and I was following a lot of people's careers from day one. So I have to assume that conversation happened, because I wouldn't have known any otherwise. It certainly wasn't the industry that we have now, where you can reach so many people in such a short space of time. So I'm going to assume, and based on the instructor's character that we had, I would imagine we almost certainly had that conversation. I don't know how I would have found people to follow otherwise.
Who were the people that you were following at the time?
Hard. So outside of the UK, it was Zariah Judd, Carol Helms, Alethea Austin, Felix Kane, Carmine Black. Those are the ones that like immediately stand out. In the UK, of course, it was Sally Ann Giles, of course, the goddess of all goddesses, like just Karen Chaundy, who I was obsessed with and am still a little obsessed with, let's be completely honest about things. Annie Norris, Becca Butcher, who else was around? I'm always so nervous about doing things like this, because I know I'll forget to say important people's names, and the chances are, if I didn't say your name, I was absolutely following you. I just have like a really small brain, and there isn't much room left in it. So
we have more opportunities to be able to share these people, though. So it's not, just exclusively to this hour that we've dedicated to each other. And what I keep saying to lots of people is that, we don't have the best memory, we don't have the best brains, obviously, we've been around a bit, but we can if we want to, if we feel like we're not too depressed by social media, when that name pops up into your head, you can always share it, can't you?
Yeah.
You can always share a story, you can share a post, you can give some love, you can just do any of those things whenever the time arrives for you to be able to do that. Because, you know, people are really, really ingrained in social media these days, and I'm hoping that by doing these interviews, obviously people will see us and see these people a little bit more, and we can all do our duty to share, and everyone can do that. You know, if anyone feels inspired by someone else, no matter how long they've been doing pole for, you know, they can share that, so that we can all still create this community space together, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about all being in this community space together. It's not about excluding people, it's not about them people and those people. It is absolutely about all of us being in this space together, full of love, full of acceptance, and just continuing to carry the torch. But obviously looking back a little bit, so that we can make sure that the people that did come before us don't feel like they've been left behind. So sure. I feel massively like it's my duty to bring these people to either fresh eyes or to remind them of these people if they already knew. So that's quite a list, obviously, already.
Yes, I think like there's also a bunch of people who like come under my inspiration heading, but for like different reasons. So Nicola Galmi, who I've already mentioned, I would struggle to find anybody else in this industry with that girl's work ethic. Like legit, there are times when I look at what she's been doing in the past and been like, how are you even alive? Like, it makes me tired just looking at you.
Yeah, she's got a full-time job as well as running like, I don't know now, 20 venues.
It's insane. And I have to say, she is one of my standouts in this industry, and she has relentlessly been on my side. And by that, I mean, if I've had a bit of a rough patch, if I've had a question, if I've needed some advice, she is so giving and so free, and there's never a string attached. Like, she literally shares for the love of it. And it is, unfortunately, in business, not just pole, but in business, it's actually really unusual to come across women like that, because society has taught us to keep our shit to ourselves, not to talk about money with other businesses. There's all these rules that women have in society about life, but specifically about business and about how you should and shouldn't behave. And Nicola's never done that. She is Nicola all the way through. And I think if you cut Nicola in half, she would bleed generosity.
That's so sweet of you to say.
Of course, I have to mention my wonderful friend, Mini Milk, Sarah Black Milk, who, but like, people ask us how we met, because we're like super best friends now. Yeah, I love saying that. I say that all the time. Sarah Black Milk, she's my best friend. And we actually got friends because she'd posted something online, and I think I'd commented or messaged her to say, oh my God, like, I would die if I could backwards roll like that. Like, I've never been able to do it. And she spent probably the next 4 hours sending me videos, like 40, 50, 60, 80, 90-second videos, descriptions like this, like full-on breakdowns of all of this advice on how to do it. Like, at this point, she wasn't even workshopping. Like, I didn't pay her money. She didn't ask for anything. It was just like, no, I just want you to be like, I want you to be able to do it. It's great. And that's how I ended up booking her to come and do workshops at the studio. And that's how we ended up getting friends. So again, another soul that is full of generosity. But what I love about Sarah is her technical direction. Yeah. So because she has an engineering background, everything that she breaks down is very technical, and I really love that for working with different body sizes and shapes, because understanding length of limbs and just like specifics like that, Sarah is just phenomenal at. And the big shout out I'd like to give, for lots of different reasons that aren't actually always related to pole, the person that I've been most recently inspired by is Beanie the Jet. And she's actually inadvertently managed to get me out of a massive business rut with my other business, which just goes to show the power of movement. Like, just doing Beanie's full moon floor work and just putting aside some time for myself opened up like this whole channel, and it was like, ping, I've got the answer. Oh my God, oh my God, I've got the answer. And this is a question that this is a thing I've been chewing over for like nearly 2.5 years. And the light just went on. I was like, holy shit. If you are in doubt, if you need to answer a question, if you don't know the way, action. Like anything that moves your body, even if it's not dance, will give you the answer. I don't know, there's some magical sorcery about just moving your body and taking some sort of action that just lets the universe know that you're getting the ball rolling, and it'll take care of the rest. So I can list people until I go blue in the face, but to everybody who does this job, everybody, you all inspire someone in some way, even if you're not aware of it. So even when you think you're not doing well, or you think you're not as good as the person next to you, or you think you're not enough, just know that someone somewhere is dialed into you and is loving everything that you're doing. They might never be able to tell you, like they might not have the capacity to make that a thing, but it's always worth doing what you're doing, because someone is paying attention, and indirectly the chances are that you're helping someone even though you don't know it.
Tell me, on that subject, all of the other marvelous things that you do, please.
Oh God, how long is this interview again? I am still teaching full-time in my own studio. I always describe it to people as being halfway between Oxford and Cheltenham, because that is like the simplest way to describe where we are, because we are quite a rural location. That business has been running for 11 years now. It was 11 years in February. So,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, which feels these days like a really big deal. Like it really does feel like a big deal. I have fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and a bunch of other little things that are all related to that. And I've been very aware that this job for me is time limited. And it's not really because of injury. It's just because as the years go by, more and more parts of my body hurt for more of the time. It used to be like an injury that would take too long to heal, or I would be a bit more stiff and sore than most people. Now it's sort of full on injuries that once I get them, that's it. I know until I stop working, they're not going to go away. And I knew this was coming, but I asked so many people, and I had this conversation with so many people. I just want to take what I do in the studio out of an exercise remit and deliver it in a different way that is way less impactful on my body. I'd like a business that will run from my house. So God forbid, if anything like this happens again, I know that I can survive. To anybody who had a studio in lockdown, I love you, I see you, I feel you. Please do not underestimate the damage that did to you, and you are still healing. So if every now and again you like have a bit of a meltdown, you're like, I don't know why this is happening, it's because we had worldwide trauma that none of us have been given any tools to deal with. The world opened and we were like, oh, there we go. Off we pop, let's get back to work. None of us acknowledging that we'd just been through the worst 18 months of our lives. When lockdown happened, I was like, okay, there is nothing I can do except for learn. So every single free course that comes up on the internet, I'm doing it. I'm doing it all. I'm doing everything. And I was really led into the coaching space. Back in the 90s, some of you will remember life coaching was like a thing for a little while. That's all it is. It's been expanded into so many different areas of life that the overall umbrella is now coaching. So I now have a coaching company. I trained as a neurolinguistic programmer, which is the science of modeling excellence, which is my favorite. And please come and give me a follow. Like if you want to learn more about it, just get in touch with me. But that is all changing. I'm in the middle of a relaunch, rebrand. You know, when you put a piece of choreography together and it's good, but it's not it. People who dance will know what I mean. And this offering currently is not it. So part of the inspiration, part of this inspiration was what I was talking about with Beanie earlier. We had a fantastic conversation about this last week, because I very much after conversations with close friends of mine, I very much wanted to just acknowledge to her out loud that the way she made me feel and what she offers to people had inspired me to rejig my offering, right? And I was really conscious at the time. I'm very conscious of plagiarism in this industry. And whilst I don't support gatekeepers, I do understand that when you have an idea and then you see it pop up in 70 different other places, it's really disheartening. And I think specifically for a Black woman in these spaces, it's even harder. So I just wanted to take that minute. I had some really good advice from close friends of mine, and I wanted to take that minute just to acknowledge that she'd led me to that path. And that's how I came to it, as opposed to, oh, let me see what everybody else is doing and copy their stuff, which I know happens, right? Sometimes accidentally, but unfortunately in our industry, more and more often, I see it happen intentionally with no reference to the original creator. So just, paying my dues while I can. So fingers crossed. I'm still working on like branding, because I hate branding and I know that I still haven't got it right, but I also know that that'll come.
Speaking of action, I want to know what kind of action, what kind of stuff was going on around the time that you started, or around in the way back when you'd started getting really into it. What do you remember was going on at the time when you came into the industry?
At that point, we were still very much in fitness mode. Like very, very much in fitness mode. There were a few studios open, and when I say a few, I mean like less than 15 in the UK. Probably less than 10 if I'm realistic. We were still in that place where lots of people were concerned about being referred to as a stripper, because back in those days, if you told somebody you were going to a pole class, I can bet you money, I could give you money now, that the person you were speaking to, their first response was, oh, what, are you going to learn to be a stripper? Now, obviously, 90% of us are like, yeah, and your point is, but there was less information and there was less openness. So a lot of females, not just females, a lot of people who wanted to do pole couldn't care less about stripping. They may even have gone on to do it. It wasn't oh my God, I don't want to do pole because of stripping. It was everybody around them in their circle that had that problem. And let me tell you, audience who are under 30, in 2007, 2008, we weren't having conversations about inclusivity. We weren't having conversations about diversity. We weren't having conversations about homophobia and whorephobia and fat phobia and slut shaming and. We didn't talk about it. There wasn't TikTok. We weren't making videos about this stuff and having open discussions about it. You might talk about it with your friends, but it wasn't open season on conversations like that. So there was real danger. If your employer thought you might be taking classes to learn to be a stripper, you could legit lose your job. Like, we weren't fucking about. It wasn't, oh, I don't want people to think I'm a stripper. I might not be able to pay my rent if people think I'm learning to be a stripper. It wasn't about your personal opinion about whether that was something you agreed with or you didn't. It was an assumption that other people were making about you and not keeping quiet about.
And a negative assumption. So it's not just that they
100%.
assumed you were going to be a stripper, they assumed you were a stripper and that was a bad thing. Today, you can be a stripper and get the loudest round of applause on any platform you like, whereas that wasn't the case then. If you were associated with stripping or with pole dancing, because they were, synonymous with each other at the time, then that was a negative thing. And that was a thing that made you unemployable or, the victim of potentially anything that could go wrong. So yeah.
And I think what I would like people to understand is, around those sorts of times, individually, we wanted to be those people, right? I'm not disputing that. There weren't safe spaces to be that person in those days. Like, I know it wasn't the bloody 20s, I appreciate, but when I say it was different, like, people like Andy and I, to the audience, can't explain to you enough how different it was. Like, it might seem like we're all being really dramatic about it, but that's because the change in 15 years has been dramatic. It's been almost overwhelming. It's so enormous. Like, it is wild to me that you can now see people openly talking about this stuff. Like, yeah, it's mine. When I think back to the conversations then, is wild to me that I could literally, I did in those days anyway, because I was that person, but nowadays I could say it to my 80-year-old neighbours in my tiny village who have lived here since they were born. Yeah, I've been a stripper for 20 years. They all knew when I moved here. The whole village knew before I even actually moved in that they had a stripper moving in. Everyone knew. Like, they thought it was brilliant. They thought it was like the most exciting thing that had ever happened to them, that a tattooed stripper was moving into the village. Like, oh my God, this is so great. 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have even got the rental of this place if they knew that. Like, I'm completely serious. And people like under 30s, younger people who are in this industry who are like, the fuck? I shit you not, this is what it was like. Like, this is how dramatic it was.
And why do you think that it's changed? How do you think it's changed? What happened for things to get to the stage that they're at today, in your opinion?
Honestly, in my opinion, the internet.
Mm-hmm.
The internet globally offered a platform for people to tell their truth.
Yeah.
And not only that, people could tell their truth to people who cared and who wanted to listen. So you were able to create communities in a way that geographically we just couldn't. It wasn't practical. Whereas now you can call out to people all across the world and tell them who you are as a human, and they can connect with you. That wasn't an option.
There was some preliminary work in this, though, because if people hadn't have been having the conversations geographically and hadn't tried to convince landlords, employers, all these people that stripping wasn't necessarily a negative thing before they spread the word out on the internet. And then, you know, because people still are entitled to an opinion, and if the general opinion isn't changing, then just being loud about your side of it isn't going to change people's minds necessarily, right? So there was a lot of preliminary work that had to happen by strippers, by pole dancers, by people opening pole studios, in order to convince people, as many people as they could locally, to kind of agree to their way of life before, you know, the internet could make it a bigger thing. Because otherwise, how are people just going to go from one day going strippers are bad to today going strippers are all right?
Yeah, I mean, it's don't get me wrong, it's a never-ending conversation. I think originally, historically, it was old strippers teaching new strippers to start with. Then it was old and new strippers teaching their friends who were open-minded and who wanted to have a go at it. And then it was their friends telling their other friends how cool it was, and their other friends going, actually, I wouldn't mind having a go at that. Could we come around your house, 3 of us, and learn some stuff? That then turned into, shit, there's actually 8, 10, 15 people who want to learn. I can't do this in my front room anymore. Where can I go? And
that's the what kind of work I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's originally, and we're talking about 2s and 3s of people as opposed to 200 and 300 thousands of people like it is now.
And tell me about your stripping experience.
So I didn't strip for very long. It was a handful of years on and off. Hands down, one of the best things I've ever done in my whole life. If I thought my body could tolerate it, I would be doing it now, 100%. Well, I probably wouldn't because of the dog, but you know, in dream life, if my body still worked the way I wanted it to, I would still be doing it now. Because if you have to, don't get me wrong, you have to be a particular kind of person to strip, like in any capacity. Because if you are sensitive in any way, or if you don't have a way to balance what you see and hear in a strip club, it is a surefire route to just hating men, every man, for the rest of your life. Like, you will see men do and say things in a strip club that just make you do that. Like, what? You know, if you're in the least bit man-hatey, I would say that maybe stripping isn't the job for you, because it's just going to make that worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But if you are a person who can stand back and take a bigger picture view at it, one of the best jobs I've ever done, hands down. Like, hard, physically brutal. If you think that this is like poncing around in a pair of heels looking cute for 9-10 hours, think again. Try squatting in 9-inch heels for 10 hours non-stop, because that's pretty much what you're going to do in a strip club, right? It is not glamorous like you think it is. It's basically just, how many ways can I drag out taking my pants off for 3 minutes?
Yeah, and dealing with politics, drama, club owners, customers,
Politics,
having to
drama.
talk to people exhaustingly.
Yeah, I mean, let's be realistic. For everybody who's stripped out there, I think it would be easy to agree that 85, if not more, percent of customers are men that just want someone to talk to.
Yes.
Like, okay, they want to look at your bum hole while they're doing it, but ultimately, what they came in for is because they're lonely and bored, right? And a lot of guys just don't have it. Like, I'm lying though. Why are some men so obsessed with your bum hole in a strip club? Let me just, honestly, can I just put my finger in there? I'll give you an extra £20. What if I just touch it with my tongue? I won't put it in. Dude, like, really? But it's not just that, it's the other girls, it's the doormen who are normally the best people in a club, the doorman and the DJ, the other dancers who aren't always lovely. Like, it's not some big girl sorority in a strip club. No, 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 it's not, because you are still in business, you are self-employed, and you are there to hustle. But as an overall, in terms of life flexibility, earning flexibility, personal growth, like, it's a great job. It is a great job. If you can find a good club, or a good handful of clubs that you work at, one of the best jobs I've ever done.
Absolutely.
But don't do it around a full-time job, because that's not fun.
Too mentally and physically exhausting to do that and expect to be normal 9 to 5 as well. It's too much. It's too much on your mind. Like, to go from literally nightlife to day life. It's not just about the timing constraints, it's about the whole ethos, because, you know, when you're a dancer, when you're a stripper, you have to be like the party girl, you have to be the person that's always ready to have a good time and to make everyone else be having a good time. So you're constantly in party mode and in hospitality mode, and that doesn't translate to like normal life. It's not the same thing. So when you try and move from one thing to another, it's just too much of a mess. It messes up your body clock as well, because you're sleeping at odd hours, and it just messes up your complete view on the world and your interactions with people in normal society, because, you know, you're spending 8 to 10 hours or whatever hustling and like defending and deflecting and like so many other things, like coming up with new ways to pose a question, to invite the finances in and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, you can't just compare that to a normal day.
I think that's what made it really hard as well, for strippers who went into the pole industry. You do that job all night, like literally fending off men, fending off dickheads, like just trying to protect yourself. And then you're doing it all day long whilst you try to legitimize your business idea to people who don't understand. And not only do they not understand, they don't want to. That was the problem. Nobody wanted to understand. They didn't want to listen. They didn't want to have the conversation with us. It was, oh God, I can, like, it's all coming back. I can remember so many times, so many venues. There was no way you could get around the conversation, because you could tell them you were teaching a dance class, but you had to get permission to put poles up.
Yeah.
Because there weren't freestanding poles in those days. They had to be put up somewhere. And even if you tried to explain to somebody that it was compression and that there were no screws, the minute you said the word pole, I could speak to anybody who's been doing studio work for more than 10 years. There was a face that people, that they would glaze over, and you would see it happening, like physically, you could see it happening. And you know straight away, this is over. Like, they're not going to take me. I can't even remember the amount of venues I went to before somebody said yes. Like, it was exhausting. And you got to remember, in those days, I mean, I was lucky, I didn't have to, but a lot of us were defending ourselves to strangers, but also defending ourselves to our families, keeping secrets from people we loved, because we knew for a fact that they weren't going to understand our lifestyle. Absolutely. They weren't going to understand. I'm very lucky. My mum is fantastic about all of these things. When I started stripping, I told her, don't get me wrong, like, my mum wasn't like over the moon. It wasn't like, yay, this is the best career choice you ever could have made. But my mum also trusted me to know that A, I will do what it takes to get bills paid, and B, if I was doing it, I was saying it was fine, I was fine. Like, the first thing that my mum was bothered about was safety. And ironically, I had to have the conversation with her, and I'm like, Mum, I am safer working in that club than I am going into any nightclub as a civvy on a Saturday night. When I finish my shift, I get walked to my car by a bouncer. When I turn up, I get walked to the door by a bouncer. Somebody carries my bags. I'm like, that doesn't happen when I'm in a club, you know, in a club for a night out. I'm walking back to a car park in the dark at 3:30 on my own. So I'm safer here than I ever have been as a civvy. And that was really all my mum needed to know, when she knew that. She was completely supportive, and she's always been like 100% behind me in pole. And I feel very grateful for that, because I'm so aware that so many people's families just either don't get what we do or do get it and still don't like it. I think that must be unbelievably difficult. Everybody out there hiding it from people you love, like, it sucks. I understand, and it sucks more than anybody can imagine. And nobody will really get what that's like unless you're going through it. It's really difficult to understand.
So tell me your funny story then, Lucy.
My funny story. I mean, there's a funny story and there's just a lol. So I literally, when I say I knew nothing about stripping when I started, I can't emphasize enough how much I mean this. Like, I knew nothing about stripping. Like, I still thought that you took your clothes off on stage. Like, I didn't realize that you go off with people. I didn't know anything. And I had the most excellent gay best friend at the time. Dwayne, if you're watching, love you, girl. And he was just, honestly, he was the most supportive person. And he was so excited for me. And we used to take our lunch breaks. And we would go outside and he would help me with like choreography to Pussycat Dolls, because that was like our favorite band.
Is that what you did on stage? Please tell me you did that on stage.
Sometimes, yeah. So my first pair of stripping shoes I bought from Faith in the Faith shoe shop. So they weren't even real stripper shoes, right? And I remember having this awesome pair of like, they were like a pale blue mesh pant, like with strappy sides. I thought they were gorgeous. And it was a club in Banbury, and you got paid £20 a dance, and the club took £4. And they wanted you to check in after every single dance. You didn't tally up at the end of the night. It was every single dance you went and paid in.
Oh.
So, and you weren't allowed to carry any handbags. It was the same old deal. They were super suspicious.
You have to carry around like a handful of change so you can pay your commission.
Literally take it straight from the dance, straight to the cashier, like after every single dance. It was ridiculous. And I'm like, fuck this for a game of soldiers. Like, this is ridiculous. So I slid the 20 in my pants. I'm like, fuck them. I'll take it in at the end of the night. Come out the booth, stroll across the main concourse, past the cameras, get called straight into the office. What the fuck is this? Go up in the office and they're like, cashing in? I'm like, yeah, I've been doing it like every dance. And he looks down at me like this. And I'm like, why is he looking at my crotch? Like, I know we're in a strip club, but are you taking the actual piss right now? Looks at me. I'm like, what? Looks down at my crotch again. Yeah. Putting a £20 note in your pants is great if the pants aren't see-through. Dude. Like, I am clearly not the most cutthroat businesswoman in the universe. I've never felt more embarrassed in my life. I was like, I can't do dishonesty, clearly.
And what was the distance between where you dance, where you cash out, and where the changing rooms is back to the floor again?
It was a pretty small club, but I'd say you're looking at least like 5 to 7 minutes, which is 2 dances. Like, that's £40 just up the spout straight off the bat. So yeah, it was the worst idea.
Was the trade-off that you could leave anytime you wanted?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have to cash out at the end of the night, because I know every single club I've ever worked in, there's like a queue of girls at the end of the night and you have to cash out. And I'm always
5 a.m. cash out.
Yeah, 5 a.m. The club that I work in local to me, it's 7 a.m.
No,
and you're like there.
No, thank you.
Come out of the club and the fucking seagulls are awake and they're like, Mah! And it's daylight and you're like, no.
Is that you or the seagull?
No, we're having a conversation at this point. Like, yeah, fucking rah, feel you, mate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was I don't remember. I never left before closing, but that's because I was a diehard, and I'd not been doing it long enough. Like, I was too new to leave before closing. I'd not got that jaded, but it was very small, not very busy. They had a civvy club downstairs, and then you would pay an extra premium to go upstairs into the strip club. So
That's kind of cool, because at least they had a little bit of a funnel, but I bet it also promoted dickheads just coming up drunk to see what it looks like and stuff like that. But every customer is an opportunity, so I don't know. Correct. It depends how you look at it, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I want to know what you feel, and this is a really difficult question to answer, I'm sure, but what do you feel like your contribution has been to the industry?
I would say mostly my contribution I see in the biggest form would be through the competition that we ran, because that's where I came into contact with the most people. And I think what we provided for people was a really amateur friendly atmosphere. Initially, I started that competition so my students had a chance to compete somewhere that they felt safe, to see if it was something that they liked doing and they wanted to go further afield and do. And I wanted to recreate that atmosphere for as many people as I could. So I think probably, like, nationwide, that's probably the biggest impact I've had. I think in previous years, my butts had a tiny impact on the whole industry, apparently. Ask Pammy Cameron, who is my butt's biggest fan. Love you, Pammy. I would like to think overall, people, like, if I never did pole again, people would remember me as somebody who made them feel good about themselves. Like, that's the only real thing that is important to me. Somebody asked me, a guy actually asked me, what if I could have a superpower, what would I want? And instantly, like, it's an easy answer for me, I would just like to be able to give my eyes to people. And he went, what? I'm like, I want other people to be able to see themselves the way I see them, because they'd have less self-esteem problems, less confidence problems. Like, they'd be able to really be who they are if they could see what I see. And he went totally silent for like a good minute and a half, and he was like, shit, that's a really good answer. It's like, yes. And I think it's a good answer because it is absolutely no holds barred, 100% the truth. I've said it to people loads of times. I've said it to my students. That is the gift I wish I could give everybody.
One of the biggest things that happen as an instructor is that you do provide this safe space for people, not just literally physically, but you provide a space for them in your body, if you know what I mean, in your soul, in your time, to allow people to be themselves and to find the best version of themselves and to elevate their emotions and their mood and their personality, and to bring out the best in people and to help them in ways that we could never really even comprehend. When people first come to us, we don't know who they are, what their background is, but our job from minute one is to make that person feel comfortable, welcome, happy, and safe and secure enough so that they can just be as much of themselves as they can be. And that's where their growth will happen. That's where all the progress and the happiness will come from. So, you know, to old school instructors and to new instructors, obviously, you know, that holding that space for people, especially over a really, really long period of time, is one of the most important things and one of the most important contributions we've made to the industry, is because we've been here to hold this space for people to be themselves and to be authentic and not have to hide and not have to worry what people are going to think of them. We've provided this judgment-free location, physically or virtually or whatever, for people to be, just be.
And honestly, I think I'm really glad that, especially during lockdown, I feel like all of those messages got louder. And I'm really glad because, to be transparent, I'm a white cis female. Like, I don't, touch wood, I don't have any struggles in life like that. I never have. I've never experienced that. And I'm blessed enough to never have really been shy. I've never really struggled with my self-confidence. I struggle with my self-esteem because that is a whole different game to self-confidence. folks, please don't mix the two up. They are two completely, you can be as confident as fuck when you're out in public and still have massive self-esteem problems. They are two different things. But I am blessed never to have had the struggles that other dancers have had and are still having, just to be able to enjoy the form of movement that they love. And I'm very, very aware of that. I wasn't for years, like for years, I wasn't sex friendly. I wasn't anti-racist. I had knowledge of those things and I knew they were a thing and I knew what my personal attitude was about them, but I wasn't doing anything openly. Like I didn't know up until maybe 2 years ago that there was a difference between not being a racist and being anti-racist. I didn't know there was a difference between those two things. Like I've learned so much in the last, I probably learned more in the last 3 years about things like that than I have in the last 30. And to everybody, to every single person in our industry who's put themselves out there to educate us, thank you, because I don't know that there's anywhere else that I would have felt safe asking those sorts of questions and having those sorts of discussions. So, you know, yes, unlucky, touch wood, I've sailed through my pole life to a big degree because I look the way I do. And I'm becoming more and more aware of that as every year passes.
Yeah, so huge thank you to everyone who's done anything to help educate us and to shout about these issues and to help people to understand what is an issue, why it's an issue, how it affects you, and what we can do to be better, because that's ultimately what we want. We want to grow as a community, to grow, to do exactly that, to become better, and to make sure that we're continuing to hold safe space for people in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you as well, have you ever competed in a pole competition?
I have, yes, in several. Unfortunately, never had the big win that I always wanted. I think if you, no matter what people say, and I tell my students this, you have to compete to love presenting the piece that you've put together to other people. But I'm an Aries, so I compete to fucking win. Let's be completely honest about this. Like, I like winning shit. And there are lots of spaces that you can perform for the sake of performing, but I competed because I wanted to win. And I wanted to win because I was so aware of how that can gives you immediate visibility, which is what I wanted. But it wasn't to be. I think for me personally, running a studio as a full-time career, well, I had a job to start with, but running a studio, being on my own, having health problems, just are not conducive to training in a way that will allow you to win big competitions. I know there are other people out there doing it, and I salute you, because it's not something I was capable of. I need a lot of time to prep for a comp because my body can only do little bits at a time. So I need sort of 3 to 6 months to prep a routine, not 3 to 6 weeks, which is what most competitors are doing nowadays, the professionals. And I can't keep up with that. And I came to a conclusion that it probably wasn't a smart idea for me to continue to do it, because I was going to get very sour about stuff, and not for the right reasons. So I knocked it on the head. Is there a bit of me that is like, when I'm not teaching full time anymore, but I'm still doing pole, could that still be a thing for me? Maybe. The idea is definitely not dead. Definitely not dead.
Every time I do a competition, I'm never doing that again. And then something will come out and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting, because there are so many new amazing competitions coming out now, and competition organizers and the people that are involved in competitions these days are doing a really, really good job of bringing them up in standard in terms of the judging and in terms of the inclusivity. We've still got miles to go, and no disrespect to any competitions that came before, because they paved the way for the newer ones. But these things take a really long time and a lot of practice to become good, right? Just like with pole, if you want to be good at it, if you want to climb up the ladder in whatever way you see fit, then you've got to give it time, you've got to give it practice, and you've got to give it dedication. And it's the same with the competition scene. You know, we've tried it out lots and lots and lots and lots of times, and now we're starting to get to the juicy bits, we're starting to get to the good bits. So every time a new competition comes out or a competition comes on my radar and I'm like, oh, that speaks to me slightly different than other competitions, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it. And then afterwards I'm like, I'm not going to do it again. Why have I done this?
Every time, yeah.
Every
And
time.
while we're talking about competitions briefly, can I just please say to all competition organisers, people who run competitions, can we please, for the love of God, can we please take another look at beginner categories? Because I've got some students competing at the moment, right? And I don't know what's happened, but we're starting to look at beginners like Russians do. Like, who's seen a Russian video? Here's 5 beginner moves that you'll love, and you watch it and you're like, Aisha, wait, what? Like, hey, wait, what? And I feel like our competitions are going the same way. Like, I legit do. I've had some students recently who are competing at beginner level. The feedback they're getting, the things they're being asked to do, the rules, they are not aligned with what I see a beginner as. And I think we need to go back and have a look at that, because in my student body, certainly, and I can't imagine that my student body are so different to everybody else's, it's putting people off competing, because there's this expectation that even at beginner level, you should be inverting, for instance. My beginners don't invert. That's not what makes a beginner. Like, you don't go, it baffles me. Like, when I look at a beginner competition routine, I want to see all your moves done on both sides. I want to see some spins, some floor work, some static poses, and you smiling and trying to enjoy what is a terrifying experience. That's all. Smooth. Maybe you've thought about a bit of musicality. You've put a lot of effort into your costume, because you don't have to be advanced to do that. Anybody can do that. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I'm seeing now in competitions that judges want like intermediate level routines, but with beginner movement. That's not what a beginner routine is for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, a judge's responsibility is obviously not only to be fair and as unbiased as possible, let's just say that, but to give constructive feedback. Right?
I don't necessarily think it's the judges, it's the rules and the criteria. I think we need to restrict beginner criteria back to what beginners is, which is the fundamentals.
I think that there's an industry-wide problem with standardization. I mean, the closest thing we've got in the UK, in my opinion, to standardization is, not that this is a plug, but like
the
Spin
spin.
City.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say, for sure.
But even within that, and I don't want to say this out now because I absolutely love everything that Spin City has done, so appreciate everything that they've done and everything that they stand for. And I'm a massive lover of Kate Edwards and anyone else who works at Spin City. I really do love them so much. And obviously I've done work for Spin City. But I think we as an industry would benefit a lot from having more levels than just beginner, intermediate and advanced and professional and elite. Yeah. So within beginners, I feel like there's a beginner 1, beginner 2, beginner 3, or whatever we want to call it. And I really think that all of us as an industry should have a good old sit down and a chat. And I know there's going to be arguments, and I know that there's going to be people who disagree with certain things, but to come up with a standard that is more industry friendly, because as you say, there are plenty of beginners. The actual meaning of the word beginners is someone who's just started doing something, but people can be in what the industry calls beginners for years and years and years, right? So that terminology doesn't actually ring true to the people that are in that space.
So this is why we changed all our categories in the Lucy Pole Cup for this very reason. So I think we had 3 different levels of beginner. So people who wanted to do beginner and been doing pole less than a year, doing pole longer than a year, and I think there was a category for people who had done pole before but had come back as a returner beginner. So they had the foundations but had gone off to have a baby, haven't been back for 3 years, and then they come back, because there's so many different variations of people's pole journey.
But it's also not determined by how long they've been doing it for, because obviously and you know this, I'm not telling you this, I'm just saying in general that, you know, people have got lots of different barriers to exercise, different backgrounds and stuff like that. So how long someone's been doing something isn't necessarily a good indicator of how they're going to be either.
Absolutely not.
And it's a really difficult job to do, because we're also restricted by you know, the actual words and the actual moves themselves, because not every single person, regardless of how long they've been doing it for, will be able to complete and execute every single move, because it's impossible. You know, everyone's got a different body type, everyone's got different abilities, everyone's got different flexibility, strength, 100 things that they aren't necessarily in control of either. So we can't go around saying that these are the first 6 moves that you have to be able to do, and you can't move on if you don't do all 6.
And this is where it gets super complicated. And there's a part of me that agrees with what we've just talked about, making it more accessible to people. And then there's a part of me that is like, do you know what? I think sometimes we get really hung up on accessibility. If you look at, like, I used to love the show Dance Moms on TV, right? If you look at classically trained ballerinas, Russian gymnasts, anybody who is elite in their field, they don't give a fuck about accessibility. You can either do it or you can't. And if you can't, this is not the space for you. And there's a tiny part of me that feels like that has relevance in our industry as well. Like, would it be better if competitions were fucking rigid and you either do it this way or you don't win? It's as simple as that. Like, really, really, really clear cut and specific. And for people, other people who want that experience, but they don't want to train like that, there's more of the performance category type of competition where you still get feedback, there's still a winner, but it's much broader in spec, it's much more comfort and friendly driven. So there's sort of 2 streams of competition, perhaps. I don't know. I'm sure that with the coming years, more studios opening, different styles coming through, I'm sure our competition scene is going to change anyway. I just think we are in a really strange place at the moment where we are stuck between 2 worlds, and I don't think either of them are working, if I'm honest.
I agree. And that's why it's so difficult to do this. It would be so difficult to come up with a standard, because at the end, in one breath, standardization would kind of take a little bit of the individuality and the flow away from it, right? Potentially. And like the way the like PSO or whatever it's called, pole sports,
yes,
method
in America,
of doing competitions is transparent, and at least you know exactly what you need to do. You need to rotate 4 times at 180 degrees in a split, and you know exactly what you're aiming for. So when you look back at your video, there can't be any discrepancies. Makes sense if that's your thing, and there will be people who that is their thing, and that's great, as long as we're still doing the other stuff as well, and we have these opportunities to be super strict and dance mom about it. Then it's all fine, because the whole point of this is that it's a community space. So we've got offerings. If people want to offer them, if people want to do the work to do them, offer all the things. And then obviously with this infinite amount of choice that we have, we can decide whether we want to do that or that, or exactly. that, or that, or that, or that, or that, because it's going to continue to give more opportunities and more ideas and more creativity and and hopefully showcases and all that kind of stuff are going to continue, so that people can perform without having to compete, etc.
That's what I'd love. I think it will get there. Like, it'll happen of its own accord. This will all come together, because that's how our industry has worked. We've gone too far one way, and then we come back a little and we get it right, and then we go too far that way and then we come back a little and we get it right. Like, this is what life is. You go all in. You figure out what you liked and what you didn't like. You come back, you have a little meeting with yourself, you refresh, and then you go out again. Like, it's something that is like a massive teaching point in coaching.
Yeah.
About how to approach stuff like that, how to figure out what you like, how to figure out what's important to you, how to figure out what it is that actually makes you feel good about something and what doesn't. You know, these are the deeper questions that any kind of movement leads you to, if you're open to that kind of experience.
Absolutely. So what would you like our newer dancers to know?
2 things, and this is not specifically aimed at newer dancers, really. It is, but it's also to everybody. The message that we've all been banging on about forever: take time to learn, not just pole, but take time to ask the questions about our industry's history. Not just for sex work reasons and for, you know, understanding why strippers get mad when celebrities wear stripper shoes, and, you know, why hashtag not a stripper is a thing. Like, yes, have that conversation, but about all the other things as well. Have conversations with people about how you put a competition routine together when there were only 12 moves in our curriculum. Like ask people what it was like when shoulder mounting made you God. You know, ask people those questions, because what I think it will help newer students understand is how fucking insanely talented they all are. Right. Something came up for me yesterday. I went to Inspire's second birthday showcase in Cirencester, which is a studio run by Azaria Frost and a lovely young lady called Charlotte. And I've been to a million competitions as a judge, as a compere, as a spectator, as a competitor. I've been to loads. But I don't know what it was. Something hit me yesterday when I was watching this, especially when I was watching the more beginner routines. I was like, fair play. Like, we as a collective are actual incredible, though. Like, the crowd, Inspire crowd, by the way, you are one of the best crowds I've ever sat in front of in my life. They were insanely supportive. Like, they were so great. And they were made up of, I think, almost 50% non-poll people from what I could see, people's families and stuff. It was really nice. And that's what started me down this train of thinking. I'm like, they're so loud and supportive because this is so impressive. And I'm like, yeah, hang on a minute. Yeah, it is. These are normal, in the nicest meaning of the word, average people, like regular people with sometimes full-time jobs, families, normal lives, holding their body weight in their own hands. Just that, if that was all you did, if you just did a lift and slide for the whole routine, can we just talk about, I say this to tasters when they come in and they leave, I'm like, when you book tonight, if I told you by the time you leave this hour, you'll be holding your own body weight in your hands, would you have believed me? Every single one of them is like, no. I'm like, well, that's what you just did for an hour. Like, I'm mind blown about this, and I've been doing it for 15 years. You also need to be mind blown. So to people who are new, yes, one day you will be inverting and doing shoulder mounts and doing Aishas and da-da-da-da-da-da, and that's all great. But right now, you are doing something even greater. You are learning the limits and capacity and capability of your own self. And that is just wild to me. I came home like so emotional. I was so humbled and so grateful to have been part of that yesterday. And I don't know why it poked a nerve specifically yesterday, but I just think new students, take a moment, please, to recognize how awesome you are and how awesome this journey is going to be for you. And if you're going to compare yourself to anybody, compare yourself to your silly friends. There's no point in comparing yourself to people in the industry because there is no direct comparison. There will be people who have different physicalities to you, different jobs, different experience, different backgrounds, everything. You cannot compare because there is no direct comparison. But if you compare yourself to a civvy, you'll understand how incredible what you're doing is.